Welcome to episode 5 of the Whispers in the Corn Devlog series, a horror game set in the 1990s where the player gets lost in a haunted cornfield. If you're new here, I'm Brian McRae, celebrating my 25th year in the industry, having worked in AAA and as an indie, along with having served as an instructor in 3D animation. In this series, I'm creating Whispers in the Corn as a solo game maker. Over the past month, I've been creating the props needed for the rituals that take place in the game, using basic 3D modeling processes along with cloth simulation to settle the leaves in realistic ways. However, most of the work was spent creating the soundtrack for the project. I decided to start with two distinct types of music pieces: the main theme, which can be used in various marketing materials such as the trailer, and the chapter tracks, which set the tone for each of the 5 days in the adventure. In this devlog, we'll look at part 1 of the main theme and a couple of the chapter tracks. This will also be a bit different from my previous devlogs, as I'll be diving into Logic Pro and showing more of a hands-on approach to the creation process. Anyway, I hope you enjoy it, and with that, let's get started.
The way I've been approaching this is every instrument sort of stands for either a character or some element within the game itself. So the guitar is sort of the backbone of the entire thing. And in this case, we're going to be looking at the main theme of the soundtrack. This is what I started with here. And what I wanted to do with the acoustic guitar is kind of lay this rhythmic feel. And the acoustic guitar in this part of the main theme is kind of like the ticking clock. So it's very basic. It starts with an E minor. However, I change it a little bit. I make it a little bit more mysterious by adding that F sharp on it. And then the other chord is a B flat. But instead of that, I kind of change it a little bit and do this instead. And what I like about that is it gives it a little bit more dissonance. I like the B natural, the B flat right here. And the reason for the two chords is the E minor is sort of the basic consciousness that you're in as you're in the cornfield, and the B flat is kind of the evil. That's sort of the evil lurking underneath, the mystery kind of chord, the evil witchcraft kind of going on. And then what I did is I just added a simple rhythmic feel to it. So that keeps going. And then I wanted to add a piano on top. So let's add that to it. And you can hear how it works together. So notice when these piano parts are coming in, they are not all hitting at the same time. You could see the MIDI notes down here. I'll zoom in here. Let's see, like this. So time is represented going horizontally, and these are individual notes. And you could see the velocity is how hard they hit. This is hitting at 102, 93, and 88. And then this shows you what note you're playing. And of course, when I laid this track down, I just hit record. And I just recorded that, and then I sort of tweaked it afterwards right here in the what's called the piano roll inside of Logic Pro. So the reason I'm sort of offsetting it and not hitting it all at the same time is that the piano represents the player. This is the player character. And I wanted this sound to be a little aloof, sort of confused and unconfident. And so the piano continues all the way through the theme and kind of goes down this winding sort of consciousness here, which is pretty cool. Check this out. So that's a little bit later on in the piece, and you could see that it sort of progresses. Next up, to thicken it up, I wanted to add strings. Now the cello and the violin, this just sort of adds atmosphere. I don't know if this really pertains to a specific character, but just kind of the overall feel, the atmosphere, maybe it's the wind, maybe it's just the overall vibe of the cornfield itself. So here's what it sounds like with the violin added. Very cool. Yeah. So right there at the end, this is the classic violin strings playing all this dissonance. They're playing almost maximum strength, and they're playing that B flat to B natural. B natural is part of the E minor chord, and then the B flat is, of course, that evil devil chord that we're going back and forth with. And between the two of them, they really create this shrill right at the end of this crescendo that I'm building up to right here. Let's add some vocals. Now, this next character that I wanted to bring in was the girl that lures you into the cornfield itself. And so I wanted a siren, some kind of alluring, sultry voice that really haunts the cornfield, really stirs the soul. So this is what I came up with here. Really happy with how this one turned out. This is how the voice sounds. And so this is the melody that I came up with, and this is how it all works together. Yeah, so that's her part. This next part is really interesting. This is the choir. Now, for the choir, this represents the ritual that is happening in the cornfield. Now, If you've been following the devlog, you've seen that the gameplay is that you have to stop the rituals before they happen. Otherwise, things are going to go bad for you. So what I wanted to do here was give a feeling that in the soundtrack itself, that there is this sort of, I don't know, like a witchcraft or a ritual kind of happening. And so I decided that the choir is a good way of doing that. And so I found this really neat tone, and it sounds like that. And what's really neat about it is it also takes in a modulation wheel to get different vowel sounds, which sounds like this. So what I'm doing right there is on my MIDI controller, you can see on my MIDI controller over on the side here is a couple of pitch wheels. And I could slide back and forth with my finger as I'm holding down the note. And when I do that, it creates different vowel sounds. And so this was a lot of fun to come up with what sounds like kind of a Gregorian chant. But here's how it goes. Check this out. So yeah, that was a lot of fun to get that working for the choir. Going from there, I just wanted to come up with a whole bunch of different variations off of that main theme. Now, for the rest of the soundtrack, I didn't want to have so much of a rhythmic feel, but still use the guitar as the primary or foundational instrument. So what I did was I came up with a whole bunch of different riffs, and then use that for the foundation for each, different song. Let's hear how that song came together using the same techniques that I used on the main theme. This is, of course, using cello, violin, and the soloist, along with some of I got the ghosts in here, and I have some other sort of ambient effect sounds at the bottom. So I'm not using all the instruments. Notice there's no piano in here, and there's no choir. So this is what this one sounds like. So that's how that one goes. By the time we get to later on in the soundtrack, I wanted to start adding a little bit of hope. And for this, I wanted to create more of a chord progression. So getting away from just the two chords and getting a little bit more into an actual progression that moves all the way around a loop. And so this is what I mean by that. So far we've just been going to the B flat, but now what I want to do is add some hope. I'm going to do and I'm going to go to the C, which is a very hopeful chord, but it is also in the E minor. And then I wanted to go to the A. It's a very, very sad chord. We're not out of the woods yet. And then the turnaround chord, instead of a B flat, I want to do a B natural, but with an E flat on the top there. Which leads you into the E. And what I really like about that is it gives you some hope. It is very sort of classically influenced. It sounds like this. It goes. And what's also great about a progression like that is it's a lot of fun to solo on top of. So let me just play a snippet of these last two for you because they both are themes and variations on that progression. So here we go. Last one is very similar. I'll play the guitar part for you. It's the same progression, except it's a little bit more fragile. And it goes like this. So very kind of classic rock guitar right there. And again, very easy to have a solo on top. I started with a piano solo on top and then brought in the soloist. This one is meant to be very melancholy, very sad, but also at the same time hopeful. Let me play the guitar and the piano for you first. And this shows you that, again, the piano represents the player. The player now has some confidence. So check this out. So a lot of that was just first take on the piano. I just sort of felt it and played it. Moving on from there, I wanted to add the soloist, and she plays the counter melody, and it goes like this. Going on, rounding it out, the violin, the cello, everybody kind of comes back in. And I don't have any of the weird effects underneath anymore. The choir comes in a little later on. It's beautifully sad. Let me just play the whole thing for you here. There you have it. I love making music. This has been a lot of fun. I can't wait to do the rest of the soundtrack, and I do plan on putting this soundtrack up on Spotify and making this available to you.
I hope you've enjoyed this look into the soundtrack process. If you did, be sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to stay up to date on Whispers in the Corn, check out my website and join the newsletter. It's free, and you'll be the first to know when the game is playable. Until next time, remember to design, develop, test, and repeat.